Okay. So we're here and we are discussing the top 5 grunge bands according to worldwide record sales. So this isn't who's best, this isn't who's our favorite, this is how many record sales have they had up until this point, according to Wikipedia and other sources. So all of this is supposed to be taken with a grain of salt. Start out with the 5th one and then we'll work our way up.
Okay, so let me think. So, grunge. I mean, the first band that comes to mind is Pearl Jam.
They're definitely on the list, but they are not at the bottom of the list.
All right, I mean, that makes sense. I don't think Nirvana's at number 5. I feel like they're probably either 1 or 2. Soundgarden.
All right, you got it. Lucky guess. All right, so what are your thoughts on Soundgarden being at the bottom of the list?
I mean, it makes sense. They put out like a ton of if you include their live albums and their, B-side or whatever albums and maybe albums that they've done, more recently, they do have a pretty extensive discography, but they really only have 3 albums that everybody's always talking about. Super Unknown, Bad Motorfinger, and Down on the Upside, which was their mid-90s, end of the 90s album. They had a couple good songs on there, but I think overall, the fan favorite is probably Super Unknown, right? That's probably like their biggest album.
I would agree.
Nirvana had a shorter run than Soundgarden did, and they made it higher. So how many albums did they sell?
30 million. So this is estimated. 30 million plus is what you'll find online, but approximately 30 million. Honestly, man, I was surprised that they would be at the bottom of the list. For some reason, I thought that they would be a bit higher as far as record sales goes. I feel like some of their hits were a little bit more mainstream than some of the other bands. But then when you start to factor in the fact that like they broke up early on, or earlier than some of the other bands, and then the amount of records that some of the other bands put out, I guess it makes sense. I don't know. I guess they weren't as mainstream as I would have thought.
So let's go for number 4. I'm going Pearl Jam, Nirvana 1 and 2. I don't know which order.
You're there, man. I mean, you got it. We'll discuss where they're at.
Nirvana's 1, Pearl Jam's 2, but we'll talk about that later. Number 4, I'm going to go... Alice in Chains.
All right, so Alice in Chains is just above Soundgarden in record sales. They were like 30 million plus, which honestly, I thought that Soundgarden would have outsold Alice in Chains in record sales. So I was kind of confused when I saw this.
I know that I have 1, 2, 4, and 5. So the question is 3. I think for 3, I'm going to need a hint.
He was probably the most animated on stage. He liked to slink around in...
Stone Temple Pilots.
There you go.
Are they grunge, though?
So there's a debate. I mean, if you look it up online, there's a lot of people that wouldn't consider them grunge. And honestly, I think I kind of agree with that. There's elements of grunge in what they put out, especially in certain records. But I don't know, man. I really feel like they don't have the same feel and sound that some of these other bands did when they first came out. But they are attributed to the grunge time frame. And they came in at 40 million record sales.
I guess you have to think, what is grunge? I think most people would think grunge is a specific style of alternative rock music that started in the early 90s and originated in Seattle is often one of the attributes that's given to grunge, right? That it came from Seattle. Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains. I think Stone Temple Pilots may have actually been from California, so I don't know if that disqualifies them. But they certainly were an active band at the same time as all of those other bands, and they have songs that have grunge elements to them. Maybe, though, only in the sense that they're a 90s rock band, and so their flavor was the flavor of the time. Their sound was the flavor of the time. But let's leave it on the list. Number 3, Stone Temple Pilots. Number 2. Now, I know Pearl Jam and Nirvana are on the list. The question is, has Nirvana outsold Pearl Jam? I think, though Pearl Jam is very popular, especially in the community of people that like this style of music, Nirvana is one of the bands that was huge, but I feel like some people kind of feel like they're a little bit overrated. Maybe that wasn't true at the time when they were in like the peak of their success, and Kurt's death certainly had an impact on their popularity, no doubt. Pearl Jam, though, has put out more albums. Earlier, I was sort of like, it's Nirvana, number 1, Pearl Jam, number 2. But the more I'm thinking about it, just because of their longevity, they had immense popularity in the 90s, so people were buying their albums. Plus, they have longevity, so they've been able to stockpile on their album sales. I'm going to go Nirvana 2, Pearl Jam 1.
Yeah. When I was making this list, I was thinking that Nirvana was going to be number 1. I was surprised that Pearl Jam outsold them, but you made a good point. Pearl Jam has been around for much longer. They've continued putting out records. So the fact that Nirvana has 75 million records sold worldwide just speaks to how enormous of a band they were, how much of an impact they made. You know, for the short period of time that they put out music, they made a significant impact, which is actually pretty crazy.
Yeah, I wonder what would have happened if they were able to keep going. I know that around the time that Kurt died, they were sort of thinking about taking a break. You know, there was like a lot of tension in the band, and I don't know if that would have been a permanent break anyway, but had they continued, let's say that they were still a band today, like Pearl Jam is, you might think that their record sales might be close to 200 million maybe.
Just a testament to what they were a phenomenon. I mean, they changed the landscape of music. Culturally speaking and musically speaking, they just made a significant impact.